Welcome on in, everybody. Nathan King here, the Auburn Undercover YouTube channel, Auburn Undercover podcast, joined by Jason Caldwell. It is finally game week here at Auburn. They just wrapped up their first in-season practice here. Well, not wrapped up yet. We wrapped up out at practice here on Tuesday afternoon. Heard from Hugh Freeze on Monday. Got to go check out practice. Heard from players on Tuesday. Obviously, they get set for their season opener on Saturday night in Jordan-Hare Stadium. First of 5 straight home games. The first one against Alabama A&M, 6:30 Central Time. Jason, we were talking to Freeze yesterday. I think one of the most, position-specific things people wanted to talk about was the offensive line, because we know that Freeze and that staff made some late preseason changes. He said it was going to be a mixture at that left tackle spot: Percy Lewis, Dylan Wade, and Tyler Johnson. Now, Tyler Johnson is a guy, I think, if you've been listening to us, you know about him, but may have flown a little bit under the radar. 2023 recruit, redshirt freshman, former 3-star, flip from Texas Tech. Being out there at practice, though, Jason, I would be really shocked if Tyler Johnson is not your starting left tackle on Saturday.
Yeah, I think it is all three guys. I think all three guys will mix in. It looks like right now that Tyler Johnson's a guy they want to see get some experience early on, see how he adapts a bit. But physically, he's exactly what you're looking for out there. I mean, he gives you a little bit of Greg Robinson vibe, to be quite honest, but he's an athlete when you look at him, but a guy that's 6'6", 310 pounds that can move. I think he's a guy you'd like to get some experience on. Let him kind of get his feet wet a little bit this season. I think if you came down and said, hey, who's your next tackle, I think it's probably Dylan Wade. Yep. I think he probably moves inside. We saw Tate Johnson in the guard there. Percy Lewis is still at left tackle. I think he'll be in the mix there too, but it kind of feels like those other two guys might be the guys that you look at first. But I do think we'll see a bunch of different guys, some rotation up there, to kind of see what the best group looks like. They do have options, and that's the biggest news, is that there are some options for this offensive line, unlike we've seen the last few years.
Yeah, I mean, you want to rotate a lot of guys against a team like Alabama A&M. I think regardless of who they were going to be playing in this first game, though, you would see some mixing and matching. I mean, we saw Ronan Chambers kick inside to guard. He's been the second-team right tackle all preseason. DeAndre Carter got some second-team work there at, I believe it was left guard.
Left guard, yep.
So we will definitely see all of those guys there in the first game. A couple housekeeping injury things to touch on. The ones that Freeze mentioned yesterday were Keontae Scott. He's been dealing with that hamstring issue all preseason. And Austin Keys, who suffered a sprained MCL in that first scrimmage. He said the medical staff told him they're both probable, so that's encouraging. But he said, I want to see some quality work from them in practice before I give them the green light. No non-contact jersey today. Yeah. Both of them look like they were just fine.
Yeah, look good. Austin Keys came up and spoke to us as we were going off the field in our period, and he said, yeah, I'm good. And so Keontae, he said today he looked good. He was out there, looked to be fine. Wouldn't be surprised if they limited those guys a little bit after, kind of being limited some in the preseason. But both look like they're good to go. Austin Keys just wearing a brace to kind of protect that sprained MCL. But other than that, look pretty good.
It's J.C. Hart as well. I know he's probably happy to be out of that non-contact jersey. He separated his shoulder about 3.5 weeks ago. So just sort of a precaution thing, but he was out there hitting guys in practice. So just some other practice notes to touch on. That secondary was really interesting to watch, kind of see how they're going to line up in this first game. Seems like between Caleb Wooden and Sylvester Smith, Caleb gets the nod there. Sylvester Smith will continue to play at safety. Oh, Jaron Thompson also is in a non-contact. I think he'll probably.
Yeah, I mean, I think that was just probably a cautionary, probably a bruise, something like that, because he was running around practicing, doing all those things. But it did open the window a little bit for another guy we've been talking about. Caleb Harris, true freshman from Thompson, a guy that's been impressive. The coaches have talked about him really since the spring, about how quickly he was able to pick up and adapt, and he's out there getting some first-team reps today. We're going to see a lot of that true freshman in the secondary.
Caleb Harris was in there. I think your backup nickel at this point is Jaquez Robinson, the Colorado transfer who started his career at Alabama. Of course, the guy that Charles Kelly knows very well. That was an interesting competition. Amon Lane Gaines, I think, is your bottom cornerback there, not in a scout team jersey, so I think he's going to remain with that normal set. J.C. Hart is the number 3 corner. I think there's pretty much no question there. Saw a lot of rotation between Jay Crawford and Antonio Kite there behind him. Jason, talking a little bit about kind of what to expect from this game, I think one of the biggest points of emphasis, talking to Hugh Freeze, you wrote about it yesterday, it doesn't matter who you're playing, but especially when you're playing a team like Alabama A&M, you just want to see your team go out there and execute. But when you have so much freshman talent like this that's going to see the field, seeing them execute is very important as well. So I think we're going to see a lot of those guys in the second half of this game. A lot of them in the first half of the game as well. They're going to have roles to play. Freeze is going to want them to be out there executing well because, again, it doesn't matter who you're playing probably right now, but later on in the season, you're going to need it when you're playing someone like an Oklahoma or an Alabama.
This is an important week because this is the first time since they've been at Auburn that these guys can focus on an opponent. So you narrow down what you're doing in terms of offense, defense. You narrow down what you're doing in terms of play calls, and it shortens. So you're able to then you're repping a certain amount of things. For guys like Malcolm Simmons and Perry Thompson, especially probably the wide receiver group, you're probably only going to rep 5 to 10 things this week that you're really specifically focusing on.
Right.
So they'll go, hey, we're going to get you touches in these areas. Here's what you need to worry about. And then you'll add more to their plate week by week. So this is an opportunity for those young guys especially to get a feel for, hey, what it looks like on a game week, narrowed focus on what you're going to go execute, and then go out and not have to worry about so many things.
Yeah, obviously, the excitement this offseason is how can Auburn make Peyton Thorne better? It's probably the number one narrative of the entire offseason was how they can improve this passing game. And you sort of mentioned it there, something Freeze touched on Monday. He has been really hard on these freshman wide receivers, and for a reason. He knows they're all really talented, but the other side of it, besides wanting them to develop properly, the other side of it is he knows sometimes it doesn't matter what Peyton Thorne does if the other side of the route is not run properly, and so that is something I think to focus on as well. We know about Robert Lewis, we know about Keandre Lambert-Smith, the experienced guys that you would expect to run this system well, but at the same time, Jason, only 2 returning scholarship receivers.
Yeah.
I think you might see some clunkiness here and there, but that's something, look, Freeze is going to want to get that on tape from the first game and make sure that's sharp going into SEC play.
Yeah, and I think you got a lot of newcomers, even though they played a lot of football.
Yep.
Sam Jackson hasn't played wide receiver. Robert Lewis, Keandre Lambert-Smith haven't been here. And in that entire group of freshmen, we looked out there, and you're going to see a lot of different rotations. They can go pretty big for this group, which would be a Camden Brown, Sam Jackson inside, Cam Coleman outside, Rivaldo Fairweather. Like, you could have a bigger group of guys.
Yep.
You can go speed with Robert Lewis and Malcolm Simmons, Bryce Kane. Who knows? Like, they have, again, it's much like the offensive line. You have a lot more options. You have guys. Now the same thing holds true. Now you got to go out and make plays, and that's the key. Okay, go out and play and back up what you look like physically, because physically this is a much better roster than we've seen in quite a while. Now you just got to go out there and do it.
I thought one of the most interesting things he said this week, something you wrote about this morning, they're going to have a free rotation at receiver, and obviously that informs good execution. You can't have that free rotation if guys aren't executing. But Freeze basically said, we've got too many good guys if someone isn't playing well to leave that guy out there.
Yeah.
Like, if explosive plays aren't happening, if they're not running the right routes, if they're not executing well, you're not going to stay on the field. We have too many other good receivers on the bench. I think that aspect of the rotation will be really interesting to watch as well.
I think it pairs with something you wrote, which is because of the helmet communication, because of things cutting off at 15 seconds, I think you'll see really fast at times, and I think you'll see slower at times. And I think he talked about, hey, now you're throwing a deep ball, you slow down then to make a transition to allow another guy to come in where you stay fresh. Maybe you then, hey, we're going to huddle up a little bit and force the defense's hand a little bit. Say, we'll make our call. And I was thinking about it going, hey, you make your call with 16 seconds left, get it done, and then you get on the field and start doing those things. The defense then has to respond without the benefit of being able to be talked to. There's some things that they can maneuver with. I think we'll see tempo, but I think we'll see it slow down some too.
Yeah, Freeze talked about that on Tiger Talk yesterday. He said there might be a little bit of a chess match you can do there. Don't show your personnel until the last possible second. All of a sudden, if you're in defense, you only have 14, 13 seconds to adjust to that. Touch on this defense a little bit, kind of what fans should expect to see. We've heard about it all preseason with this defensive line rotating and how many guys they're going to play up front. I think you and I agree. Every coach wants to say that, but this group, there's no smoke involved in that. We saw it at practice today. It is truly going to be 6, 7, 8 guys. We saw them all with the first team out there, including Malik Blockton was the first defensive lineman I saw. He's going to play. All those transfers are going to play. Bobby Travis was out there at nose tackle, rotating plenty with that first team, especially when they get into the second half of this game. You are going to see 15-plus defensive linemen.
I think when you talk about from defensive end to jack linebacker, the front 4 group, I think we'll see 13, 14 guys probably that are playing in that by the time you get to the second half of this game. That's going to be huge for them to be able to stay fresh. Also to find out who can be a playmaker.
Yeah, have him in there. Amaris Williams was a guy we saw rotating with that first team group as well. I think he's sort of shown you have that 5-star talent. He's probably too good to keep off the field at this point. Before we go, I'll rotate in here. I'll leave it to you, Jason. Talk a little bit about recruiting. If we don't get to a full recruiting podcast in terms of previewing this first game, I know everyone's looking to the first visitor, but kind of what are you and Christian looking at in terms of visitors this weekend?
Yeah, I think a lot of that will be determined by, once you get into, the actual visit time. I think we'll figure out a lot more of those later this week. Thursday, Friday, we'll have an idea of who those visitors will be, who we're looking forward to, Christian. But obviously, everybody's kind of pointing to Deuce. That's kind of the one everybody looks at. Hey, when is something going to happen? We've been hinting that we thought it might happen this weekend. Still believe that's the case, and so we still like Auburn's chances a whole lot there with Deuce to get that quarterback in. And if that happens, it could really kick off another big couple of runs for them as they finish off this 25 class, even though we're still just here and going to be still in late August.
Yeah, that's the thing with Deuce. I mean, once we get to Friday, we're already on alert because we already think something could happen in terms of Auburn flipping him. Once we get to Friday, we're really on alert.
Yep.
And then he'll obviously be in with his whole family over the weekend. Tom Loy reported that. Expected in still after his game on Friday night, probably come up Saturday morning or something like that. But timeline-wise, things like that are a little fluid. They always kind of are with a flip. Sometimes it's hard to truly get an idea of when something could happen, but leaning a little bit more towards Saturday as of now. But again, that's what we're recording this on Tuesday. Things could change
it could.
Tonight.
Yeah, this
not in terms of Auburn's chances. We don't think those will really change, but just timeline.
Just timeline. Yeah, this could be one where if you do that, you come in Saturday, you hang out, you get a chance to see everybody and say, because we've seen these before. Kickoffs at 6:30. You see a guy that goes, "Hey, at 5 o'clock, I'm going to do it." Get everybody get into the stadium. You get there, they're in the recruiting lounge with what we expect to be a bunch of Auburn commitments in this class. Hey, I'm in. Let's go. Celebration time.
Give him the mic.
Yeah, and so I think it could be something like that where that may be a pregame announcement that blows the roof off the place. So we'll see, but should be a good one. There's it's not the biggest game, but this is a group I think that'll be a good one. Obviously built around a bunch of commitments.
Yeah, that's the thing. Thinking about it, we're in uncharted territory a little bit, at least past couple of years, compared to the class is pretty well built up right now going into the first game. You've got 22 or 23 commits, something like that. There's not a lot of targets that are still out there that we're tracking in terms of are they coming in for a visit. Andrew Babalola is not a guy who's going to take a game visit. He's on commit watch between Auburn, Michigan, Stanford. That'll happen within the next week or two, and he's not going to take any visits before then. Malachi Goodman's up in New Jersey. He's not coming down for a visit. It's Deuce Knight, who we know is visiting. It's Usman Chroma. It's Neem Offord. Those are the guys that we're watching in terms of when are they going to visit? Are they going to be here this game?
Yeah.
But then it's all your commits and then the 26 class.
Yep. And 27. It's getting younger and younger. Yeah, that's it. It'll be some names to kind of, okay, that's a name to perk up, maybe to watch and see where those guys show up. 26 class, and you're right, just some of those 25 guys to pay attention to. But this one, all about Deuce and see what happens with Auburn's quarterback target.
Yeah, and then the only other thing I would mention with 25 is like Malik Autry and Taurus Dice both expected to go visit Florida for the opener against Miami. Obviously, anytime a commit goes and visits somewhere else, you're watching it a little bit. You're a little concerned. These guys have visited Florida a good bit throughout the process, but not a huge concern level there. And look, they'll both probably be at the Cal game. We haven't confirmed that, but you do kind of watch now going into this fall for us, like I said, uncharted territory. You have to start watching where Auburn's commits going to visit, because over the last couple of years it's been, okay, well, what kids committed elsewhere coming to visit Auburn?
Yes.
So that's kind of what we're watching a little bit. But Jason, like you said, all eyes on Deuce this weekend, and we think that his commitment status could change by the time the weekend is over.
Yeah, absolutely. So keep it locked in. Auburn Undercover, 24/7, YouTube channel, Instagram, Twitter, all of the above. We'll have full coverage rest of the week, and look us up on Saturday as we get ready to kick off the 24 season.